Hi, folks. Welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your lead beat writer, host, everything you need when it comes to Wolfpack news. Tucker Sennett. I'm in charge of NC State on SI, and excited to be with you for another episode of the NC State Insider Podcast. Today, shorter episode again. We're going to be talking about the importance of motivating players or of motivation from preseason polls and predictions and rankings and not letting those getting to you as more and more of those come out in the coming weeks. NC State has sort of been in this middle of the road group when it comes to the ACC and nationally. And another big one came out today. CBS Sports' initial preseason. They do a ranking for every single FBS school, not just the top 25. The coaches poll came out earlier this week. NC State was not a part of that. But the CBS list is an interesting one because it sort of gives you a feel of how people are valuing the conference, how people value NC State within the conference, and how they stack up against the nation overall. Um, it's a lot of teams. It's over 100. I believe it's 136 teams in FBS now. So you know, there's there's always room to maneuver. And the question is whether lists like this can push NC State and give them bulletin board material, allowing them to have a better season in 2025 than they did in 2024. So as for the ACC list, I'll just run you through, or the CBS list, I'll run you through the um, how the ACC stuck out in this list. Clemson came in as the best team from the ACC at number 4, Miami at number 10, SMU at 17. Those are your three top 25 teams. Those are the teams most people expect will be in that opening AP 20 top 25. Then you have Louisville at 27 on the outside looking in. I could see them sneaking into that top 25. That'll be a team that gets votes for sure. Georgia Tech at 33, Duke at 37. There's your first Tobacco Road rival for NC State. FSU at 41, Syracuse right behind them at 42, which is interesting because Syracuse was picked um, behind NC State in the ACC media poll a few weeks ago. They had a ton of roster turnover, but I think CBS is just sort of counting on Fran Brown being an elite head coach. Then you have Pitt at 44, Vautech, another team picked to finish behind NC State in the ACC by the media poll. Then you have UNC up the road at 54, one spot ahead of NC State at 55. So NC State is according to CBS the 55th best team in America. Not where you want to be, but things could be worse. The rest of the ACC shapes up with Virginia at 60, Boston College at 66, Cal at 72, Wake Forest at 78, and Stanford at 79. Those are sort of your bottom feeders for the conference this year. That's sort of what everybody expects. Wake Forest is fully rebuilding. Stanford has their drama. Cal had their drama with the transfer portal, and nobody really knows what that's going to look like. Boston College lost its quarterback, and Virginia is sort of there, but not expected to be super competitive. So, what can you take away from this if you're Dave Doran and NC State? Some coaches will say nothing. These things don't really matter, and that's probably true. There's nothing wrong with taking that approach to polls. NC State has been ranked before, and you know things haven't worked out. So there's certainly a world where you just ignore this. But given the particular position of NC State on this poll, right behind North Carolina and the Bill Belichick project out there, it's interesting because we've already had some drama about North Carolina and NC State with Hollywood Smothers posting the dartboard with a photo of Bill Belichick, and it's not easy for these guys to have to field questions about a program that they have nothing to do with at the end of the day. They just want to go out there and beat them. And so that can drive you to be successful. That happens in rivalries a lot, where one team has to listen to everything about the other, and it can be exhausting. And I'm sure, even though they might not openly admit that going forward, and they'll focus on one game at a time, that's a motivating factor to be better than UNC this year, given all the national chatter around Belichick and that program. This also sort of gives you a baseline for what people think of you as a program nationally. And clearly it's middle of the road for NC State. And they have a chance to bounce back after that 2024 season, but it's pretty obvious that people don't see the bottom falling out on this program, given this ranking. They think that this is still a middle of the road ACC team rather than, you know, falling apart like Wake Forest and Cal and Stanford might this year. So that's a positive long term, because it means there's still national faith in Dave Doran, even though local fans might sort of be ready to maybe look in another direction. This is a guy who very rarely allows a complete collapse in a season. Um, the this poll has NC State at 11th. The media poll from the ACC had them at 10th. They're, obviously, that middle of the pack group of Pitt, Tech, UNC, NC State, Syracuse is sort of interchangeable. They're teams that all have talent, but they also have a lot of flaws, and some of them are in very different situations. North Carolina, obviously, nobody knows what that's going to look like. Tech is trying to sort of figure things out. And Syracuse is in sort of a rebuilding year after losing McCord and all those pass catchers. But the expectation is this will be sort of the middle of the pack, and that at least one of these teams will rise up and end up finishing towards the top half of the ACC. Who that'll be, it sort of depends on the schedules. NC State, interestingly, plays out of these teams, Tech. They play Pitt on the road. They have Duke, who's a little bit above, and then obviously they have UNC. So they'll have opportunities to prove that they're better than this opposition that's deemed close to them. So that can be a motivating factor as well. Um, Retention means a lot in college football today, and some of these teams, particularly North Carolina and Florida State, have continued to opt for that mercenary strategy that I've talked about over the last couple of days. And NC State really didn't. They're banking on continuity with CJ Bailey in the offense, hiring Kurt Roper to be the full-time offensive coordinator. That could go a long way. And, these are guys who knew what it felt like to have high expectations going into last season. And now, they're sort of taking their lumps here in this offseason, learning what it means like to be overlooked by a national media that's sort of moved on to Clemson and Miami this year, as the teams that could make noise in the ACC. I think at the end of the day, the primary motivating factor, pulls aside for this NC State team, needs to be getting over the hump. This is a team that hasn't played in an ACC championship game under Dave Doran. They've been right there, and they can't get to that 10 win mark that you really need to get to an ACC championship game. or when the conference is having a weak year, they're also having a weak year, and it just never, the timing never works out, or they fall on their face. And so college football playoff aside, just get over that hump, and this program will be right back where it needs to be on the national stage after sort of some up and down years over the last five years. Um, and if you can build some consistency, you can attract more players in the transfer portal. You can adapt, retain what you need, and supplement with those transfers. So that really at the end of the day should be the primary motivator for this NC State team. But the polls, they're fun to look at, so you got to do it. And it fills the day for both the media and Wolfpack fans around Raleigh. So yeah, thanks for tuning in today. Sorry for such a short episode. We'll get things going again next week with more practice content, quotes, more predictions, probably some more polls, and like that. So, thanks again for tuning into the NC State Insider Podcast. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Senate Tucker or the account for the website at Wolfpack on SI. Also, throw our Facebook page a follow, the Wolfpack on SI Facebook page. You can find all our stories, breakdowns, analysis, other podcasts right there every day. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great day.